You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN E-mini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things E-mini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borth. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Thursday, 16th day of April, 2026. Thanks for joining us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we're just glad to have you right here, right now. We do 2 live broadcasts every trading day. The first live broadcast is our live training room. That one's reserved for members only and those taking their 1-week free trial. Michael is off today, tomorrow, and Monday. He'll be back with us Tuesday morning at the Wall Street Open. I'm filling in, if you want to call it that. I did today and I'll do it tomorrow. God willing, I'll be back and do it Monday. And then things will be back to normal on Tuesday. So, again, we do 2 broadcasts every trading day. This broadcast, unlike the morning broadcast, this one's open to the public. Everybody, everywhere on planet Earth with an internet-connected device. There's 2 different ways to join this afternoon broadcast live. The best way, you only have to do it once. Go to mytradingiq.com. Scroll down the page to where it says Noon Broadcast. Click the link, fill out the 30-second registration form, and you're done. What will happen going forward is every trading day you'll get an email about an hour before this broadcast starts. In the email there's a link, so at 12 noon Eastern all you have to do is click the link in the email and it automatically logs you into our platform. The benefit there, you have immediate access to the question box, so you can ask questions and participate in the discussion. Of course, there'll be days that you're out of the office, away from your desktop, but you still want to join live. And some days you'll be busy, so you can't join live, but you do want to get caught up later. You can do both of those via our YouTube channel, which is easy to remember. youtube.com/CFRN. That's the Christian Financial Radio Network since 2005. Not only do we broadcast live every trading day on our YouTube channel, as we're doing right now, simulcasting, but we also archive each and every daily broadcast. Currently, there's over 3,000 daily episodes archived for your educational and viewing pleasure. Now, if you're new to our neck of the woods, it's a great way to get to know who we really are. Thanks to the power of YouTube, you can scroll back 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, even more, a lot more. Now, obviously, you're not going to watch them all, nor do you need to, but it's a great resource to have at your fingertips because it allows you to see how we've evolved over all these years, day by day by day. youtube.com/CFRN. On the left side of the screen, you see our schedule for each afternoon broadcast. The bottom part here that normally happens 1 hour into the broadcast or at 1 p.m. Eastern, Michael joins us for a recap of the live training room and a little bit of live trading as time and the markets permit. But he won't be here today or tomorrow or Monday, but he'll be back Tuesday. So we're going to dive right into where we normally start with our daily devotional. The topic that we're on right now, and we're going to be on for a while, everyday faith. Our scripture today is John 20, verse 27, from the NIV translation. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands? Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Again, that's John 20, verse 27. The others, we're talking about the other disciples, told Thomas they had seen the Lord. They were certain, they were convinced, but Thomas was not. In Sunday school, you learned all about doubting Thomas. He had walked with Jesus, he had seen him suffer, he had watched him die. Hope had already collapsed once. He would not rebuild it easily. So this is what Thomas said to the other disciples. "Unless I see it, I will not believe it." 8 days later, Jesus stood in front of him. There's something striking about that detail. 8 days. Jesus did not rush. Thomas lived in that tension for a week. And when Christ came, he addressed Thomas directly. "Put your fingers here." He did not dismiss the doubt. He confronted it with himself. Thomas did not respond with the explanation. He responded with worship. "My Lord and my God." At some point, faith, everyday faith, becomes personal. Not because the questions disappear, but because Christ becomes undeniable in your life. When you trace your own story, and we all have a story, where did that shift happen for you? When did belief stop being inherited from your grandmother and became your own? Perhaps it was not dramatic. Perhaps it was gradual. But somewhere along the way, Christ moved from distant to present. Those of you that have been around the last 20 years, you've heard my story so many times you could probably tell it yourself. I was 37. I grew up with a praying mama and grandmama, and I was in church every Sunday. But once I turned 17 and joined the Navy, I spent 20 years out in the wild, sowing my wild oats and having crop failure after crop failure after crop failure. And I was standing on the corner of 16th Street and Thomas here in Phoenix, Arizona. There used to be a Burger King on that corner. I think they remodeled it. It's still there. I was getting ready to go dumpster diving for a little something to eat. After the burgers sit in the warmer for a while, they toss them out. Yeah. And this is a true story. I felt like my life had run its course. I never lost touch with God. But I didn't lead a life that was pleasing to God by any stretch of the imagination. And so, standing on that street corner that night, I said, "God, I just can't take it anymore." I said, take my life and do something with it, or just take my life and put me out of my misery. The ground didn't shake. I didn't hear the voice of Charlton Heston. Only some of you will get that reference. But that was the defining moment in my life when I began to live not off my grandmother's faith, not off my mother's faith, but that's the night God became real to me. I always believed in God. I always knew He existed. But that night things changed. And within 6 months, I was clean and sober. I was running a company with 50 employees. I founded it, built it from the ground up with God's help, and a $2,000 loan from my wife, money she had managed to squirrel away under the mattress. And the rest has become history. That was not quite 30 years ago, but pretty close. And when I say everything changed, everything changed. For a while, it seemed like everything I put my hand to just worked. And I realized, looking back over my shoulder, that was God's hand at work in my life, because I had finally reached the end of myself. And that's where we find God. When a man reaches the end of himself, that's where he finds the beginning of God. It's a true story. And after I said that, I still climbed in the dumpster and found a still warm, wrapped up sandwich. A Whopper. So, when did it happen in your life? Maybe you've just been a choir boy from the cradle to wherever you are now. Well, I know the truth is most of us didn't live that perfect life. Okay? So that's my story. What's your story? When did Jesus move from being just a story that you heard in Sunday school to being personal in your life? I want you to think about that and dwell on that until we pick up with this devotion tomorrow. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, bring our faith beyond familiarity, just knowing that you exist somewhere. God, where our relationship with you has grown routine, make it real for us again and again and again. It's in Jesus' name we believe and pray. And everybody said, amen. Amen and happy Thursday. Let me give you the numbers from around the world. We'll start here in the U.S. with the cash markets, or the indices as they're called. Currently the Dow's up 92 points. NASDAQ's up 125. S&P 500's up 24. The Russell 2000 up 4.5. In the commodity basket, crude oil up $2.15, trading 93.44 last. That's a gain of almost 2.5%. Gold up $6.30, trading 48.29.90 last. Silver down 57 cents, trading 79.05 last. In the Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei posted a gain of 1,384 points, 2.5%. Shanghai gained 28. The Hang Seng gained 446. It's 1.75%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE up 30, the DAX up 87, the CAC down 11. So we had a green day in Asia. It was a mixed day for the UK. But so far, it is a green Radio Thursday here in the US of A. Let's go to the news, then we'll go to the alerts, then we'll go to the charts, and then we'll be done. President Trump has threatened to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell if he does not resign from the Board of Governors when his term as chair ends next month. Powell revealed this year that the DOJ launched a probe into a roughly $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's headquarters. Powell characterized the investigation as a pressure campaign by Trump to push the central bank to lower the interest rates. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I'm telling you, this $2.5 billion renovation, you could have just built a brand new building for a whole lot less than that. Since then, the investigation appears to have continued, despite a judge's order last month blocking the subpoenas. 3 officials appeared at the construction site this week. The probe has complicated Trump's efforts to see Kevin Warsh confirmed next week to replace Powell as chair, with Senator Tom Tillis refusing to vote for any nominees while the investigation continues. He's a Republican. Oh, he's from North Carolina. Okay. While former chairs typically resign from the bank's 7-member board of governors after their leadership term ends, Powell has said he plans to stay on as governor until the probe ends. Well, I guess we're going to find out who's got the bigger stick. Now, I never heard of this shoe company, but apparently everybody else has. Allbirds, just like it sounds. Shoe company Allbirds announced yesterday that it will pivot from footwear to AI-related hardware, pending shareholder approval. Now, I've seen a lot of companies pivot, but the pivot from making shoes to AI hardware, that's a heck of a pivot. The company rebranding as Newbird AI saw shares close up over 500% on the news. Allbirds was co-founded by New Zealand soccer star Tim Brown. The company launched its first shoe in 2016 with an emphasis on simple design and natural materials, including merino wool, tree fiber, and sugarcane. I guess if you get stranded, you could always eat your shoes. At its height, Allbirds was valued at over $4 billion. However, the company saw mounting losses after going public in 2021. Last month, Allbirds sold its footwear business to American Exchange Group for $39 million. Now, let that sink in. A company that was valued at one time at over $4 billion. That's why these valuations are so tricky. Sold for $39 million. Now, the remnants of Allbirds, once considered part of the uniform of Silicon Valley, will turn to graphics processing units, the computer chips that power AI. The company announced a $50 million investment that it will use to purchase and sell GPUs. So they're going to purchase and sell GPUs. It's not like they're going to create them. And the stock ran up 500%? Interesting. Well, you don't say. Sperm whale communication follows a strikingly similar pattern to human speech, according to a study published yesterday. Previous research has shown how these massive mammals, some weighing more than 100,000 pounds, communicate using clicks known as codas, C-O-D-A-S, which resemble human vowels. Now, a new analysis of nearly 4,000 codas from 15 calves and females reveals that sperm whales shorten, elongate, and vary tone to produce thousands of possible combinations. Researchers liken the patterns to elements of Mandarin, Latin, and Slovenian. The analysis also suggests individual whales have distinct cadences. This study is all a part of Project SETI, C-E-T-I, an international quest to translate and eventually communicate with sperm whales using robotics and artificial intelligence. I would have thought they'd have gone with dolphins for this, but apparently the whales have it. And I'm just going to say one word: lithium. I've talked, preached, whatever. Lithium. It's going to be really important in the next decade. Make sure you get some way, somehow. U.S. stocks fell today, erasing opening gains as big tech stocks pulled back and investors watched for progress on a second round of talks to extend the Mideast ceasefire. Well, since this article was written, the markets have turned around. In the Middle East, the U.S. and Iran are reportedly in indirect discussions to prolong the 2-week ceasefire set to expire April 22nd, with both sides said to be in favor of an extension. The U.S. is still very much engaged in these negotiations, according to Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, shared that yesterday. You should go to your app store and just type in the White House. Now, this is a little more current. Tech stocks pulled back today after stocks hit record highs yesterday. The hostilities in the Middle East have weighed on tech stocks for weeks, clouding the picture of whether investors are pulling back because of the war or because of sentiment towards big tech in general. Today, Tesla stock fell, reversing some of its 8% gain from yesterday, after shares were buoyed by CEO Elon Musk teasing the company's A15 chip. Speaking of AI chips, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, TSM, released its latest quarterly earnings today, a sizable 58% increase in first quarter profits, and comments by the company's CEO sent a strong signal that AI demand remains robust. Other news in the artificial intelligence industry took a dark turn over the past weekend as OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman, his home was targeted in 2 attacks: an attempted shooting and a Molotov cocktail that set his gate on fire. Luckily, no one was injured in either attack. Altman addressed the Molotov cocktail in a blog post last Friday evening, saying, "We should de-escalate the rhetoric around AI amid rising uncertainty about the technology's power. The left needs to de-escalate their violent rhetoric, period, about everything. They've just gotten real blatant. They don't try to hide it anymore." From Reuters, U.S. factory production unexpectedly fell in March after 2 straight months of solid gains. weighed down by decreases in the output of motor vehicles and a range of other goods. Production at factories advanced 0.5% on a year-over-year basis. In March, it grew at a 3.0 annualized rate in the first quarter, rebounding from the fourth quarter's 3.2% pace of decline. That's just an anomaly. And from Bloomberg, Pakistan stepped up efforts to ensure the U.S. and Iran prolong a ceasefire beyond its official expiry date next week, though several barriers remain in place, including Israel's ongoing war in Lebanon. Pakistan's army chief traveled to Iran this week as part of the nation's role as mediator between the warring sides, after hosting high-level talks between the U.S. and Iranian officials last weekend. He was greeted by Iran's foreign minister, who had traveled to Islamabad for the inconclusive negotiations. The U.S. and Iran are considering a 2-week ceasefire extension, according to a person familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified. Neither side wants to resume fighting, said another person familiar with the discussions. The comments from both Iranian and U.S. officials today suggest the sides remain far apart on key issues. Iran's parliament speaker, who took part in the talks, said a permanent ceasefire must cover all areas, including Israel's campaign against Tehran-allied Hezbollah in Lebanon. Well, that's easy to fix. Just tell Hezbollah to stop firing rockets into Israel. The ceasefire in Lebanon is as important as the ceasefire in Iran, he said. Control over the Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway for energy supplies, remains contentious, with the U.S. naval blockade now into its 4th day. Iran, which has effectively shuttered the strait since the start of the war, is meanwhile pressing ahead with plans to charge ships for transit even after the war is over. That's never gonna happen. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the U.S. military is ready to resume combat at the push of a button, whenever Trump gives the order, and warned Iran not to make any poor choices. Washington and Tehran are saying they haven't agreed to any ceasefire that lasts beyond late next Tuesday, U.S. time. There is a possibility the conflict turns into a frozen war, according to Sorana Parvulescu, a partner for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Control Risks. This is becoming more feasible because there's no good military option on the table right now for the U.S. What? That's just so ridiculous. I can't even believe I read it. We have a very good military option. We can take out all of their power, all of their bridges, and even the oil if we want. And Trump says we can do it in 4 hours. So, I don't know what they're thinking. Or maybe that's the problem. They aren't thinking. The Justice Department under President Biden didn't just target pro-lifers for prosecution. It outsourced much of the detective work to pro-abortion activist groups and even appears to have agreed to help them raise money. These groups acted like deputized secret police, compiling dossiers on pro-life activists, including personal details like addresses, the names of their children, reporting on their activity to the DOJ, and laying out the roadmap for legal charges against them. These eye-opening revelations come from the Justice Department under President Trump, which released an exhaustive report Tuesday outlining the way the previous administration weaponized the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act to target pro-life protesters. We all remember the little grandmother that was just in front of an abortion clinic singing hymns. She's in jail now. Or maybe Trump got her out. They arrested her, tried her, sent her to jail. Unbelievable. The revelations build on the research from the book, The Woktopus, the dark money cabal manipulating the federal government, fleshing out the exact way in which far-left activist groups dictated policy in the Biden administration. Well, keep digging because you're going to find a whole lot more dirt than that. And every one of you that had to pay your taxes yesterday, you should be so ticked off at Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. He had over $1 million in tax debt. And Daddy just erased it. To my knowledge, that's never happened to any American in history. Another amnesty push is happening on Capitol Hill, yet the sponsors of the Dignity Act, it's being called, are attempting to market as not an amnesty bill. America Last Republicans like Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, the original co-sponsor of the bill and daughter of Cuban immigrants, refused to recognize what the American people mandated the Trump administration to do: carry out mass deportations. The U.S. people don't want amnesty, they want mass deportation. For starters, the acronym of the bill name is in Spanish, which is not the official language of the U.S. Naming an amnesty bill in a foreign language is a slap in the face to Americans, and a member of Congress legislating on behalf of the illegal immigrant population is disloyal to America. Toss her out. The Dignidad Act has been drafted to give legal status to at least 13 million illegal immigrants who have been in the U.S. for many years because removing them or encouraging them to self-deport is supposedly unkind and a threat to their dignity as a human person. However, the dignity of the American citizens was never accounted for, as this bill was drafted, or frankly, anytime amnesty is considered. Failing to mass deport is already tacit amnesty, but codifying amnesty in legislation is a direct contradiction of immigration law and only encourages the next wave of illegal immigration. Guys, this is why the midterms are so important. I'm telling you, if we allow the left to get back in office, or the Senate, or the Congress, and God forbid the White House, it's going to be Joe Biden 2.0 all over again, but this time on steroids. You got to get out and vote. Don't just go, well, my vote doesn't really count. Well, depends on who's doing the counting, I guess. But vote anyway, so at least you can hold your head up in the event we don't build that big red wall. Police in Fairfax County, Virginia confirmed today that they found former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax dead in his home in an apparent murder-suicide. I'm here to confirm the identity of our shooter in this murder-suicide that happened several hours ago as Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, according to Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis. Fairfax shot and killed his wife inside of their home and then shot and killed himself. This has been an ongoing domestic dispute surrounding what seems to be a complicated or messy divorce. Fairfax reportedly shot and killed his wife in the basement, then went to his bedroom and shot and killed himself. The former lieutenant governor had accused his wife of assaulting him in January, but when police investigated, they found that the alleged assault never occurred, according to the police chief. The couple's teenage son and daughter were at home at the time this took place. Davis said the shooting was certainly a traumatic event for those children to live through. It's kind of obvious. The police chief described the shooting as a fall from grace for a relatively high-profile family. He described it as tragic for the children to lose both parents and extra tragic that they were in the home when it happened. And those kids are going to be so traumatized and in therapy forever. Pray for those children. President Trump has made an endorsement ahead of the Ohio Republican primary in a key House district that could help decide which party controls Congress. The president announced Tuesday on Truth Social that he was endorsing Air Force veteran and former CIA officer Eric Conroy for Ohio's 1st Congressional District. He drew a strong contrast between Conroy and Democratic incumbent Representative Greg Landsman, noting that Eric Conroy is one of the strongest Republican candidates in the country, whereas the current congressman is a weak, radical left Democrat who always puts our country and safety last. Eric, on the other hand, will always put Ohio and America first. Listen to the president. He's got a spooky way of being right an awful lot. But he never gets tired of winning, does he? All right, last on the news front. Democrat and socialist New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani said yesterday the city is not actually experiencing a much reported exodus of wealthy residents over higher taxes. This guy will just stand up in front of the press and lie his lips off. A surge of affluent New Yorkers leaving the city and moving to places with lower taxes, such as Florida, was a major story in the run-up to the 2025 mayoral election. Mamdani repeatedly called for massive tax increases to pay for a slew of social welfare programs, and reports of the exodus exploded as his win looked increasingly likely. But when speaking in front of a Tax the Rich banner at a tax day event yesterday, Mamdani just denied that there's been any such exodus, calling it imaginary and arguing that the opposite was true. Yeah, right. People are flocking to New York so they can pay more taxes. And I know you've heard about his latest scheme. If you're wealthy and you have 2 homes in New York, and if they're worth more than $5 million, which if we're talking New York City, that's kind of a starting point for a broom closet. You're going to get double taxed because you don't have the right to own 2 homes when you can only live in one at a time. He's doing everything he can to drive people out of the state. How stupid does he think people are? Well, he got elected, so I guess that answers the question. Logic 247, that's our 24/7 around-the-clock Emini alert service. It's not just E-minis, it's also crude, gold, and silver. Over the last 402 weeks, we've issued over 22,000 individual handcrafted alerts, and we've averaged on a weekly basis 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out, based simply on market structure, a simple process we teach all of our passport holders. Now, Valerie did the recap early this morning at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. So this is how things looked then. She'll update it, of course, this afternoon. Since the markets opened this past Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, we've issued 56 Logic 247 alerts. Now, Don't get those confused with the concierge trade alerts. It's two different animals. But here's the rub, bub. We're still waiting on the outcome of 27 because all of the short alerts have gone untriggered so far. So when Valerie did the recap this morning, we had 29 actionable alerts, 2 stop outs, 7% of actionable alerts stopped out. Now that's a percentage I can live with any day. Remember, what we've averaged over 7.5 years is 20% or less. But the last few weeks have been very kind. I think we may have had 2 or 3 weeks in the single digits. But we still got the rest of today and tomorrow to go. Now the logic alerts have an entry price, either long or short, an initial target, in most cases additional targets, and then a final trade to target. The purpose of the logic alerts is to help you learn how to read a chart. If you never actually trade a logic alert, use them for the purpose intended. Learn how to read the chart so you know where to anticipate resistance, where to anticipate support. And in doing so, you'll reveal the windows of opportunity where you find your most high probability, low risk trade opportunities. Now the logic alerts can come out anytime around the clock, 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Futures trade around the clock. We have traders around the globe. Our day session is their night session, and vice versa. 402 weeks is a very long time. Like I said, 7.5 years. However, many years before we introduced Logic 247, we had our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts. Now they're different in a lot of different ways. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'll just say they don't come out around the clock. They're typically published 5 minutes ahead of the Globex Open each evening. So last night at 6 p.m. Eastern, that was the beginning of the Wednesday session. The Wednesday session will end today at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Thursday session will begin tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. So what that means is all of our traders had all of these targets 5 minutes before the market opened last night. The ES, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, the NQ, gold, and silver. So let's go look at the charts. We'll start with the daily chart of the bellwether, the S&P 500 E-mini futures. And what's the high of the session? 70.89. 70. Let me grab it over here. 70. Come on now. It's tricky to get it just right. Oh, I think I had it. I was close. Come on. 70.89. Okay. It's 70.89. So it's close enough for now. Because it looks like the market wants to go back up there. So I may be moving that again later today. Now, price always reverts to the mean. I don't care what you trade or how you trade it. It just is. Kind of like gravity. Now, in our case, the mean is green, this green line. We call it the BBC. It stands for Bull Bear Cross. When price crosses above the green line, we're bullish and expect higher prices. When price crosses below the green line, we're bearish and expect lower prices. But where it gets really cool is the pullback holds more often than it doesn't. Leg, retracement, leg, retracement, leg. This time we trade it through. Okay, the pullback holds more often than not, but eventually it will trade through. Here we had a leg and a retracement, and the pullback held for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and on the 7th day we closed back above. Now you might look at this and go, well, that didn't hold. Those candles are definitely below the green line. Look at the wicks. As long as they're touching the green line, that's considered a hold. So we had a leg and a retracement, pullback held, leg and a retracement, pullback held, leg and a retracement, pullback held. Whether price is pulling down from above or up from below, the pullback holds more often than it doesn't. You can take that to the bank. Now, this most recent downtrend we were in, which we've pretty much erased, in fact, that high that we're on right now, oh, look at here. What's the high of that candle? 70.96 okay? There should be major resistance there. 70.96. And what's the high of today so far? 70.89. So again, 70.96. The high of this candle should be good resistance if we continue to push higher. But I want you to look at the black step line. See how it's leaning to the right? When that thing crosses to the right side of blue and climbing, expect a retracement, at least back to the BBC. Then it becomes a question of, will the pullback hold or not? As we came out of the downtrend, the pullback held, and it held, and it held, until we had a candle open and close above the green line, the BBC, and that officially took us from a downtrend to an uptrend. All alerts, both Logic 247 and the Concierge Trade alerts, are created on the 30-minute chart. Now, the 30-minute chart, there's nothing magic about 30 minutes. It's just the time frame I've used for many years. And, well, it's worked out pretty good. We're well above the highest weekly trading zone on the ES. On a typical week under normal conditions over the last 16 years, by close of business tomorrow, we would see price down here at 69.52/53 or below. Don't know if that's going to happen this week. The vertical lines separate today, Thursday. Here's Wednesday. Back here's Tuesday. Okay. So this was the opening candle last night. Now remember, our traders had these targets 5 minutes before the market opened. We opened at 70.58 and ran up 20 points to 70.78 by 21.30. 20 points. You only need 2 points to get your goal for the day. Now when the market finds resistance, it's going to go look for support. So we got a little pullback. And the pullback just took us to this low here. Support sends us back to resistance at the target. Resistance sends us back to support at the BBC. And then we had a head fake here. We had a candle open and close below the BBC. It really looked like we were headed for the short target. And all of a sudden, buying came in during the 11 o'clock candle. This is the 11:30 candle. That's when the European markets close. We usually see a significant move between 11:30 a.m. Eastern and 12 noon Eastern. And there it is. So we actually got a little bit above the long target. pulled back to the BBC, and bounced. Now this chart is sending some mixed messages at the moment. We have a red candle on our hands, but we're above the BBC, that's bullish. We have blue and climbing as opposed to red and falling. So both of those things are bullish. Now this candle has 10 minutes left in its lifespan. Once we take out the high of the current candle, if we do, then the next major resistance should be at the high of the session, which is 70.89. So how would I trade that long? 70.85 to 70.88. It's a nice little 3-point trade. Very conservative. On the Dow. Now, these weekly zones, we've published them for over 16 years for our members every Monday morning. Once they're published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. When price drops to a weekly zone, we expect support until proven otherwise. When price drops to a zone, we expect support. When it rallies up to a zone, we expect resistance until proven otherwise, like this right here. So on the pullback, the zone held. We got a leg and a retracement and a leg. Now notice on the Dow, we failed to take out yesterday's high, and that's what the long target was based on. We gave it a good go, but we just didn't quite get there. Then, where do we find support? Right at the short target. We spike the zone to hit this spot right here where red turned to blue. Does that happen every time? No. 8 out of 10? Yeah. So support sends the market looking for resistance. Well, we traded through the BBC. We opened and closed above it. But now it looks like we may close back below it. So that little candle right there may have been a head fake. If we resume the climb, 48,820 up to 48,860, that's 40 points. You only need 20 points on the Dow to get your goal for the day. If we trade through the BBC here, then there's potential support right there. Now, 48,620, write that down. That should be good support, at least good enough for a bounce. And then you got the zone, and then you got the short target. And if we were to trade through the short target, this low right here, and right here where red turned to blue, and then the low of this candle, and this candle. Market structure is really simple. You just got to invest a little bit of time in learning, okay? On the Russell, here's where we opened last night. Kind of just ran sideways overnight. This morning at 9:30, the Wall Street Open, we did spike up and hit the long target. We attempted to go lower, but buyers came in. Now they came in right here. Now I would have expected potentially support right there at the low of that candle. But we missed it by, I don't know, a few ticks. Now we've gone up and hit the long target a second time and a third time. You only need 2 points on the Russell to get your goal for the day. Now, I totally screwed up the NQ alerts. I've already confessed in the discussion group and in the live training room. For some reason yesterday, my charts hung up. And so when I went to do the CTAs last night, my chart had not updated since 10 o'clock. But I was in a hurry, and so I didn't notice it till this morning. And I realized, so just ignore these, okay? Because mea culpa. Here's where we open. Now, when blue and climbing gets directly above price, it becomes potential resistance, usually because it's on its way to becoming red and falling. Blue and climbing is bullish, red and falling is bearish. So, this pullback held until you got that same head fake right here on this candle. It looked like we were going to go lower, and then boom, before you know it, we're back above the BBC. So we've put in a leg and a retracement. You see how we came back? That wick is touching the BBC. So far the pullback held. And always remember, that's how price moves in legs. Leg retracement, leg retracement, leg retracement, leg retracement, leg retracement, leg retracement. It's just how markets work. Crude oil. As equities go down, crude goes up. It's still a long way from the long target, but this is the lowest weekly trading zone for crude. So all yesterday, we just consolidated around the lowest weekly trading zone. But then today, off the London Open, leg retracement. See how the zone held as support? Now, over here it was resistance. But once we popped above it and pulled back, it became support. And now price is always trying to get to a weekly trading zone. How do you know which one? If price is above the BBC, it's trying to get to the zone overhead. If price is below the BBC, it's trying to get to the zone below. When price encounters a weekly trading zone, only one of three things happens. 70% of the time, it's consolidation. 20% of the time, rejection. 10% of the time, the slice. That's when a 30-minute candle slices through a zone like it's not even there. When that happens and the move runs out of steam, price will typically retrace to the zone it sliced through and then continue in the direction of the slice. Now, may have some potential resistance here, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. It looks kind of like clear sailing right up to the zone. And if we get through the zone, then you've got the long target, which was based off where blue turned to red, right there. Gold. Here's where we opened last night. Ran up to the zone. Resistance, pull back to the BBC support. Then we put in like a little double top there. Then we eventually came all the way back to the zone below, which we expect to be support. Just like the zone was resistance, when it drops to a zone, support. Support sent us back to the BBC, the pullback held. Now it looks like we're headed back to that zone below. 4802/4803. Last, silver. This is where we opened last night on silver. See yesterday how we had resistance at the zone, resistance at the zone. Previous day, support at the zone. Now, these are the zones that were published Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. You only need 2 pennies in silver to get your goal for the day. We opened at 79.20 and we ran up basically 60 cents. $2 pennies is $100. So that's about a $3,000 per contract move. Then we got resistance at the zone. Then we overcame the zone for a little bit, but this is really important. We failed to take out this high right here from yesterday. That's a sign of weakness. And look what happened. All the way down to the short target. Bounce, back to the short target, bounce, back to the short target, bounce. Now, the black step line has crossed red and falling. So perhaps, if price can get above the black step line, we make a run back to the BBC. Now, this pullback held and this pullback held. Will the next pullback hold? You have to wait and see. Just know this. The pullback holds more often than it doesn't. Brings us back to the daily chart where we're now considerably off the high of the day. To become a member, get a hold of Valerie. You can email her, support@cfrn.net. You can call her at 949-42-EMINI. You'll probably get her voicemail. Leave a message. Hey, I'm interested in becoming a member. She'll call you back. And she'll email you all the information you need to make a well-informed decision as to whether or not what we do is right for you. Once you become a member, you're going to get 2 hours of live training every trading day. On top of that, 2 hours every day, you get private one-on-one mentoring. No extra charge. All you got to do is ask. The strategy you learn, the indicators you use as a passport holder are fluid across all markets and all time frames. Stocks, futures, crypto, Forex, ETF, it doesn't matter. Price flows the same across all markets and all time frames. From support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. It's just how markets work. As a passport holder, you'll get the Logic 247 alerts around the clock so you learn how to read the chart properly. Every evening, 5 minutes ahead of the Globex Open, you'll get the Concierge Trade Alerts. Every Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, you'll get the weekly trading zones. And every Thursday night, you'll be able to attend the members-only workshop at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tonight, there will be no members-only workshop. And last but not least, you get the golden keys that open all the private channels in Telegram. There's quite a few. Everything a trader needs, all under one roof, one low price. Email Valerie, support@cfrn.net. Just say, hey, I'm interested in becoming a member. She'll send you all the information you need, and she will dialogue with you and answer any questions that you have before you sign on the dotted line. All right, let's wrap it up with our good word for today. Be confident of God's love for you. 1 John 4:16. We have put our trust in His love. When you fail, God's love for you does not fail. And to enjoy the fullness of what He wants you to have, you must believe that. The knowledge of God's love will carry you through to victory when the powers of hell are against you. The knowledge of God's love will carry you through life's storms and into a place of peace. God's love is not restricted to the days when you have performed well. He loves you just as much during the times when you fail. You need to be confident of His love, especially when you have trials and the enemy is accusing you and saying, well, you screwed it up again. God's love is not doled out on a merit-based system. You did nothing to deserve His love, therefore you can do nothing to forfeit it. John wrote, we know how much God loves us, and we have put our trust in His love. God is love, and all who live in love live in God, and God lives in them. And as we live in God, our love grows more perfect. So we will not be afraid of the day of judgment, but we can face Him with confidence because we live like Jesus here in this world. Such love has no fear because God's perfect love expels all fear. If we are afraid, it is for fear of punishment. And this shows that we have not fully experienced and embraced His perfect love. 1 John 4:16 through 18. So friend, if you got nothing else out of today's broadcast, be confident of just how much God loves you. Screw-ups and all. That's our good word for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.